I want you to picture something for a second. Um, Imagine you're walking onto the floor of your company, or maybe a massive manufacturing plant.
Right, or even like a bustling hospital ward.
Yeah, exactly. And you're looking around at the most experienced veteran employees, the ones who know all the unwritten
The
rules.
ones who instinctively know, like, exactly how much torque to apply to that one specific machine that always jams.
Yes. Now imagine what would happen if half of them, literally 50% of those seasoned veterans, just suddenly walked out the door in the next 5 years, just gone.
Oh, man. It's a terrifying thought, honestly, because you're not just losing personnel at that point.
Right.
You're losing the central nervous system of the organization. The institutional memory just, well, it evaporates.
And that invisible looming crisis is our mission for this deep dive today. We want to figure out, how does a massive company capture decades of hands-on, gritty expertise before it just vanishes into thin air?
It's a huge problem.
It really is. So, we are unpacking this today by looking at a March 2026 press release and some incredibly detailed white paper excerpts from Irvine, California-based Eon AI Ventures.
Yeah, they've developed a new platform, right?
Exactly. It's called Genesis 3.0. It's an enterprise-grade extended reality and AI platform. And its core goal is essentially to download human expertise directly into the hands of the next generation.
Which, I mean, is an incredibly ambitious engineering challenge. We're
Yeah.
talking about completely transitioning away from the traditional classroom.
Say goodbye to the 3-ring binder training manual.
Exactly. Abandoning all of that and moving into an entirely immersive, physics-based reality.
So before we get into the wild technical specs of Genesis 3.0, and we are definitely going to get into the weeds of the code bases, the physics engines, and the AI pipelines, we really need to understand the sheer scale of the panic driving this kind of innovation.
Panic is definitely the appropriate word here, because that scenario you painted at the beginning, it isn't just a hypothetical thought experiment.
No, it's real.
The macroeconomic data actually shows that 50% of the global workforce is retiring in the next 5 to 7 years.
Wait, half.
Half the workforce.
Half the workforce in 5 to 7 years? I mean, that is a blink of an eye in corporate time.
It really is.
So accelerated knowledge transfer is no longer this nice-to-have HR initiative that gets discussed at some annual retreat. It is absolutely critical for operational survival.
Yeah, and traditional training systems are totally failing here. They just lack the precision required for complex tasks, and they definitely lack scalability.
So naturally, the corporate world looks to AI. Just throw a neural network at the problem.
That's usually the reflex, yeah.
But the source material highlights this massive roadblock. Generic, off-the-shelf AI and XR solutions are only hitting about an 80% effectiveness or accuracy rate when it comes to replicating complex physical tasks.
And see, in the consumer space, 80% is considered a miracle.
Like, we accept 80% accuracy when we ask an AI to write a polite email or, draft a weekly meal plan. We can just edit the mistakes.
Sure.
In an enterprise environment, however, 80% is a catastrophic failure waiting to happen.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I think people hear 80% and think, hey, a B- isn't so bad.
Yeah, passing grade.
Right. But imagine you're trying to learn a highly technical, potentially dangerous skill. Let's say performing open-heart surgery,
Oh, boy.
or flying a commercial jet, or managing the pressure valves on a chemical refinery. Generic AI training is basically like reading a Wikipedia summary on how to do those things.
It's a great overview.
Exactly. It gives you the gist of the process.
Yeah.
But you would never want your pilot or your surgeon relying on a Wikipedia summary when absolute split-second physical precision is required.
Oh, definitely not.
Missing 20%.
Yeah.
That is literally the difference between a successful operation and an absolute disaster. What's fascinating here is the specific engineering philosophy required to close that knowledge gap. High-stakes enterprise environments simply cannot tolerate a 20% margin of error.
Right, you can't be 80% sure how to handle a hazardous chemical spill.
Exactly. And Eon AI Ventures specifically built Genesis 3.0 because they recognize this exact friction point. Generic platforms are built for the masses, right?
Right.
They leverage these generalized large language models that just sort of guess the next logical word.
Yeah.
But enterprises will require 100% precision. You have to capture the exact physical motion, the exact hazard variables, and the exact spatial awareness of the veteran worker.
So to bridge that dangerous 20% gap to hit that absolute accuracy, you need a fundamentally stronger digital engine.
You really do.
You can't just put a fresh coat of paint on a broken car and expect it to win a race. You need a complete overhaul under the hood. And the documents outline a massive technical leap that Genesis 3.0 represents to actually solve this.
And it's worth noting, Eon AI Ventures isn't starting from scratch on this. They are backed by Eon Reality's 25 years of experience in immersive learning.
That's a lot of history in this space.
It is. They've seen the evolution of virtual reality. They know what works. And more importantly, they know what fails at scale.
And what fails?
What fails is usually a fragmented legacy code base that just struggles to integrate new, computationally heavy technologies.
Yeah, so they actually ripped out their old foundation entirely. Genesis 3.0 migrated from an engine called 3.js over to Babylon.js 8.
Which is huge.
It is. And for you listening, this is not just some small incremental software update. The platform's codebase is staggeringly huge. The white papers detail the migration of 544 separate files,
Wow.
encompassing over 180,000 lines of code. And the headline result of this migration is a massive 10 times increase in rendering performance. 10 times.
That's a serious jump.
But I have to push back here for a second just to clarify this for you, the listener. Why does a 10x rendering speed actually matter for workforce training?
That's a fair question.
Like, is this just about making the virtual environment look like a high-end, beautifully lit video game? Or is there an actual practical bottom-line application to that speed?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that 10x performance isn't just cosmetic at all. The visual fidelity, the shadows, the lighting, that's almost a byproduct.
Okay, so what's the main issue then?
The real issue is physics and human biomechanics. That 10x rendering speed is the foundational barrier being broken so the platform can run sophisticated, zero-latency simulation environments.
Zero latency, meaning there's absolutely no perceptible lag between what your physical body does and what happens inside the headset.
Exactly. Think about it. When you are training someone to operate complex, heavy machinery in a virtual environment, and there is even a 10-millisecond rendering lag between their hand turning a dial and the virtual dial moving.
That sounds tiny, but it's bad.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
You are training their muscle memory incorrectly. Their brain is subconsciously adjusting to the lag. So when they get on the real factory floor, they will overcompensate, make a mistake.
Oh, wow. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, you need that immense processing power to evaluate operator readiness and maintain strict enterprise safety standards without the system staggering or dropping frames.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't evaluate if a trainee truly knows a delicate safety protocol if the system itself is struggling to render the room.
Okay, that reframes it completely for me. It's not about making the virtual forklift look shiny and new.
Nope.
It's about making sure the virtual forklift behaves exactly like a real forklift, at exactly the same speed, obeying the exact same laws of physics.
Right. And once you have that massive engine power unlocked by Babylon.js 8, you finally have the computational headroom to start layering on features that mimic reality closer than ever before. You've built a world that can actually keep up with human reflexes.
But rendering speed doesn't matter much if the user can't actually interact with that world naturally.
Very true.
Which brings us to the actual training tools the new workforce will be using inside this system. Because they've packed an arsenal of new tech into Genesis 3.0.
They really have.
For starters, they've integrated WebXR hand tracking. It uses this specific module called the Babylon.WebXR Experience Helper.
Quite a mouthful.
Yeah, it is. But this essentially allows for real-time gesture-based interactions for your first-person hands. So no more clunky plastic controllers with buttons. You are using your actual biological fingers in the virtual space.
And that's critical because tactile training requires tactile input. If a job requires a pinch grip versus, say, a full hand grasp, a standard controller just can't differentiate that.
Right, it's just a trigger pull either way.
Exactly. WebXR hand tracking solves that.
Yeah.
And they are combining that sensory input with Havoc physics integration.
Havoc, yeah.
It's an incredibly robust, industry-standard physics engine. It's normally used in AAA video games for complex collision detection. In this context, though, you get true-to-life object dynamics.
What does that look like in practice?
Well, if a trainee drops a virtual wrench, it doesn't just, float to the ground. It bounces, it spins, and it clatters exactly how its specific mass and momentum would dictate in the real world.
That's wild.
And they've also integrated Mixamo animated avatars, giving you dynamic, lifelike virtual personas to interact with. So they're completely replacing those stiff, robotic mannequins from older VR setups.
And to give those virtual hands something to actually do, they've vastly expanded what they call the interaction gym.
Right.
The white papers state they upgraded it from 25 to 57 interaction primitives.
Now, an interaction primitive, for those wondering, is basically a foundational building block of physical movement in code.
Right.
It's the digital definition of turning a knob, or pulling a heavy lever, or gripping a pipe.
So they more than doubled the library of what a human body can actually do in the simulation.
Yeah, and that expansion is really the secret sauce for replicating real-world equipment. Because you aren't just pushing a generic floating button to indicate, hey, I understand this step.
Right, like an interactive quiz.
No, you are applying specific rotational torque to a specific virtual valve. Expanding to 57 primitives means the system can accurately model the highly specific, idiosyncratic movements that those veteran employees use every single day.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because building a virtual valve with Havoc physics is one thing, but how does this system actually know what the training module should be?
Right, the actual curriculum.
Exactly. How do you map the company's knowledge into the 3D space? Well, Eon AI Ventures built in an AI-ready SOP generation and auto-config pipeline.
SOP meaning standard operating procedure.
Yes, exactly. This system literally parses standard PDFs and DOCX files to automatically create the training procedures.
The workflow acceleration there is just staggering.
It really is. Think about it like having a digital sous chef. Usually, to set up a virtual reality training environment, a human programmer has to sit down, read the company's manual, manually code every single step, place the 3D assets in the virtual room, assign the physics, test
That
it.
takes months.
Literally months. But this AI system acts like a sous chef that can read a highly complex recipe, which in this case is your company's dry, text-heavy PDF manual, and automatically prep the entire virtual kitchen for you.
To take your sous chef analogy a step further, it's not just reading the recipe. It's understanding the physical mechanics of the verbs.
Oh, that's a good point.
The AI natural language processor reads a line in the PDF that says, tighten the primary pressure valve to 90 degrees. The AI maps the word tighten to one of those 57 interaction primitives.
The rotational torque one.
Exactly. Specifically, rotational torque. It maps primary pressure valve to a 3D asset in the Babylon engine. It then automatically configures a win state in the software that is triggered only when the trainee's virtual hand applies that torque to exactly 90 degrees. It translates 2D text directly into a 3D physics simulation.
This raises an important question, though, about the depth of this training. We aren't just talking about a digital flashcard system where you click next, right?
Not at all.
By feeding standard operating procedures directly into the AI and combining it with those 57 physical primitives, you can program incredibly specific hazard variables.
Yes. Organizations are ensuring that the incoming trainee experiences every possible variable, every single thing that could go wrong, before they ever step onto the real floor.
Which is huge for safety.
Absolutely. You can simulate a chemical leak, a sudden drop in pressure, or a catastrophic equipment failure.
They basically get to make their fatal mistakes in a sandbox where nobody gets hurt.
Exactly. You are capturing the tacit knowledge of the veteran. That deeply ingrained what to do in the gauge suddenly turns red and the machine vibrates instinct, and you're hard-coding it into a repeatable, infinitely scalable simulation.
I want to take a step back into the real world for a second, though.
Okay.
Because building a sci-fi zero-latency training simulator with Havoc physics and AI sous chefs is incredible in a laboratory. But actually deploying a system like this across a massive global organization, touching their servers, integrating with their employee databases, that is traditionally an absolute IT nightmare.
Oh, it's the worst.
How is Eon AI Ventures realistically rolling this out?
Well, you're right. Enterprise software deployments are notoriously painful. They often take years and result in massive operational downtime. But Eon AI Ventures outlines a highly structured deployment strategy to mitigate this. It actually takes place over 6 phases, spanning a 13-week timeline.
Wait, hold on. So what does this all mean? 13 weeks, a 13-week rollout for a bleeding-edge enterprise system that overhauls how a multinational company trains its entire workforce.
Yep, 13 weeks.
That sounds incredibly, almost dangerously fast. I mean, I've seen corporations take 13 weeks just to agree on the font for a new email client.
Too true.
How does this aggressive timeline not just result in total operational chaos?
It comes down to how they architected the code migration. They aren't ripping out the entire plumbing of the existing platform. They're surgically replacing the engine.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
Specifically, only 40% of the Genesis codebase is migrating to Babylon.js 8. That 40% handles all the advanced heavy lifting simulation features. The GPU particles, the Havoc physics, the avatar management, the WebXR hand tracking.
Okay, but if they are putting all the shiny new toys in that 40%, what is happening to the other 60% of the code? I have to imagine that if you leave 60% of the old system intact, you're creating a massive bottleneck. Like, how do the old systems communicate with a hyper-fast Babylon physics engine without lagging?
See, that's the genius of the architecture. That remaining 60% is explicitly designed to remain engine agnostic.
Oh, I see.
That portion includes the React UI, the back-end APIs, the user management databases, and the core business logic. They communicate with the new Babylon engine through highly optimized APIs.
Like translation layers?
Essentially, yes. Translation layers that allow the two sides to talk without bogging each other down. By deliberately decoupling the front-end physics from the back-end data, they allow companies to keep their underlying business logic completely stable.
Wow, okay. It's an intelligent balancing act. You get the aggressive innovation of the new graphics and physics engine, but you maintain absolute enterprise stability because you aren't messing with the core data pathways.
Exactly.
The employee login portal, the progress tracking databases, all of that remains untouched and secure.
Yeah, and that explains how they can execute a global deployment in just 13 weeks without bringing a company's IT department to its knees.
It's risk mitigation baked directly into the fundamental architecture of the software.
It really is. And Dan Lajerskar, the chairman of Eon AI Ventures, put it pretty succinctly in the press release.
What did he say?
He stated, Genesis 3.0 exemplifies our commitment to transforming workforce capability for the AI era. He highlights how they are redefining the standard for immersive, precision-driven training. It's really about delivering the workforce of the future without breaking the infrastructure of the present.
So, to bring this all together, we started this deep dive looking at a terrifying macroeconomic cliff. 50% of the global workforce is walking out the door in the next 5 to 7 years.
It's still a crazy statistic.
It is, and they are taking decades of irreplaceable, deeply physical knowledge with them. We looked at the inherent danger of trying to catch that knowledge with generic, off-the-shelf AI, which only gets you about 80% of the way there.
Right.
And as we established, an 80% success rate is a recipe for disaster in high-stakes, real-world jobs.
The solution we explored, Genesis 3.0, attacks that 20% gap by overhauling the digital environment entirely. By leveraging the immense zero-latency rendering power of Babylon.js 8, the tactile reality of WebXR hand tracking, and the brilliance of an AI that translates dry text documents into complex 3D physical simulations. They are capturing that vital human knowledge with absolute precision.
It's a fascinating paradigm shift. We are preserving human capital by digitizing the human experience itself.
Beautifully put.
So the next time you are at work and you see a veteran employee retiring or, even just leaving for a new opportunity, I want you to really look at them. Think about all the highly specific unwritten knowledge that is walking out the door with them.
All of the little tricks.
The muscle memory, the instincts honed over decades. Platforms like Genesis 3.0 are fundamentally changing how we preserve that human capital. We are no longer just handing the new hire a dusty manual and hoping for the best.
Thank goodness for that.
We are handing them a perfected, simulated reality where they can safely master the expertise of the people who came before them.
It is undeniably a massive leap forward for how humans learn and adapt. But, parsing the technology also leaves me with a lingering thought. Something for you to mull over long after we wrap up this deep dive today.
Lay it on us.
If platforms like Genesis 3.0 are using advanced AI and extended reality to perfectly map, simulate, and capture the exact physical, spatial, and mental nuances of our jobs.
Yeah.
If they can digitize our human expertise with 100% precision just to train the next human, at what point does the digital simulation become so flawless, so perfectly tuned to the task that the AI system realizes it no longer needs to train the human at all and can just do the job itself?
Oh, wow. Well, now there's a thought to keep you up at night.